Welcome to Everything Counts, but Nothing is Real, a podcast about careers, detours, and the absurdity of work. Here, we explore the twists, the pivots, and the tiny choices that shape our work lives with humor, feminism, and honesty. I'm your host, Kristin. Let's get into it.
Hi, y'all. I'm Kristin's partner, Lauren, and I'll be your guest host today because we're speaking with Kristin. Kristin is a nonprofit executive turned podcast host who knows that work is equal parts meaningful and absurd. She spent years navigating boardrooms, budgets, and big ideas while also laughing at the small detours that shape us along the way. With a feminist lens and a love of astrology, espresso, and reality TV, she brings a sense of humor to candid conversations about career, identity, and why nothing feels real but everything counts. Welcome, Kristin.
Hi, thank you.
So these are big shoes to fill. I'm the introvert, you're the extrovert, so this is weird.
It's so weird. And also, I'm coming face to face with my love of control.
Yeah, that makes sense. You're kind of in my hands right now.
I don't love it.
All right, so let's get started. Why don't you kick it off by giving us the short version of your career thus far?
I like to think of my career, capital C, starting when I was in grad school. I taught some communications courses, specifically like public speaking and business communication. And I loved teaching, even though talk about things not being real. I was a young 20 something teaching 20 somethings and I felt like a fraud, but it was also super fun and it put me on kind of a path. And so while I was living in Texas and I had just finished grad school, I went and got a job as a program director at a nonprofit. But naturally, I was young and I had energy, so I kept teaching. So I feel like that teaching thread continues for a bit. I started to move to New York. When I got to New York, I didn't have a job. And I spent exactly 1 month unemployed, and that was super scary. I was sure that New York was gonna chew me up and spit me out. I started temping. I got hooked up with some staffing agencies. Like, I don't even know if that's a thing anymore, but it was a thing back then. I got sent on some temping jobs, and 1 month in, I had a full-time job in my lap. So for 2-ish years, I was an assistant at a law firm, which taught me a lot of things, but also I can confidently say I was one of the worst assistants in history. Like, I'm not meant to be an assistant. Being an assistant is like genuinely hard, and it was not for me. Anyway, I did that for a while, and then I just felt the call back to nonprofits. So I got super lucky. I landed a really cool job in fundraising for a nonprofit, and that is where this sort of chapter of my career started. And I've been in several roles across several organizations, largely centered around justice and largely centered around gender and feminism and LGBTQI rights. But yeah, I've been fundraising ever since. And so fast forward to today, I am now a vice president overseeing development and communications at a global public foundation.
All right, and then I do happen to know that you had some jobs earlier than that in your career, which are definitely worth mentioning here. Particularly, I believe you had a stint at Sonic.
Sonic shaped me in a lot of ways. Yeah, it's interesting because I think I just always wanted a home. And that's a conversation for therapy later, but I looked for home and jobs. I guess my first job was babysitting. I was a babysitter. When I was 17, it was time I felt to get a job on paper. So I went to a bookstore and I got a job. And I worked at that bookstore. They had several locations around the US. So when I went to college, I went and worked for that same bookstore, but in the town where I was living. And I thought that's my job. I'm going to work for this company. I'm going to work my way up and I'm going to like, whatever. I imagined myself doing like visual merchandising. And ultimately I left that job. I outgrew that job. There are lots of reasons for that. And I went and worked at Sonic where I thought like, okay, this is my college job. I'll work here for a while. But a couple of things. One, I was a car hop and the car hops had to wear red and I don't look good in red. And the people that weren't wearing red were wearing blue, was so much better color.
That is a good color on you.
Yeah. And they were shift leaders. And so I worked real hard to very quickly become a shift leader so that I could wear blue instead of red, also because I like to be in charge. Anyway, then I became a manager at Sonic because again, okay, I'm home. I found my new home. Obviously, being super young, that also didn't work out. And then that's sort of where like those kinds of jobs intersected with grad school and I got on a different path. But boy, do I think that all jobs are so legitimate that I'm apparently just willing to stay in any path as long as I'm happy and as long as I feel like I'm at home.
You just like to be busy and feel like you have a worthy purpose. I get that.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
do.
That might be the first time I've ever heard of anyone pursuing a promotion because of a wardrobe change, but I guess whatever gets you there.
Yeah, I mean, look, I love fashion and also I love working hard and also I love bossing people around.
Let's continue that thought. You are the eldest daughter of three sisters. How has that shaped your leadership trajectory?
There's really no way to even articulate it. It's like, an eldest daughter is sort of just born into being in charge of shit. And like not all eldest daughters like take to it. So that's not to say like we're all meant to be leaders, but we're all a little burdened, I think, with expectations of leadership. and and so I don't know, it just fit my personality being the oldest child. I have a Capricorn stellium, so I'm like just Capricorn to the max and I love order and I do love to be in charge of things, and there was a time when I was younger that I thought that was, like, kind of problematic or gross, and now these days I try to challenge myself to see it as, like, leadership is actually can be really gentle and soft and
Mhm.
good, and it doesn't have to be like I'm a scary, controlling older sister, although I was also that. All the, like, ways in which I would tried to control everything around me, I've been trying to undo that.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, definitely the lessons learned from early childhood management are generally not coming from an overly positive place. It's trying to control the chaos around you. So I get that. But that said, you are just innately good at leadership. So when did you first realize you were quote unquote good at being in charge?
That's also a good question and, like, does go back to like, inner work that I'm trying to do right now, because I probably always knew I was good at being in charge. Like, I was out here babysitting my sisters when I was, like, definitely young. And then I think, if I think back to maybe Sonic, for example, when I was, like, quickly working my way up so I could wear blue, everyone liked me. The people that worked there liked me. They wanted to work the same shift as me so I could be their shift leader. And I thought at the time that like being liked was kind of it. Like that is how you know you've achieved something. Obviously that's not true because there's so much more to leadership and sometimes you aren't going to be liked. But good luck telling my 20 something self that fact. I just thought like, "Hey, I'm in charge. Our numbers are good, no one has any notes, and also everyone likes me, so I guess I'm good at being a leader."
Yeah.
And then it got a little it continued to get more nuanced as I grew up, and I think at the job that I had most recently, I stepped into leadership in a new way in, like, a more executive setting, and again, I felt like, "Well, they'll like me, so I guess I'm good," but the measures of success as a leader were really tough at that organization, and so there, I learned a lot about finding balance and about how is leadership different than strategy and how is that different than everyone likes me. I started to really understand how to start to find true balance.
Let's talk a little bit about your previous to current role. And in that role, you made it to your goal, which you were running a department. You reported only to the executive director, but you wound up leaving that role because things got toxic and patriarchal. And I think that making the decision to leave such a, you had made it
I did it,
to where
yeah.
you made it to where you were going, and then you still had to make the decision to leave it. Let's talk about that a little bit.
That organization got a new leader, and it was a man who was not used to working with women. And he was really harsh, and you could tell that he was sort of like he was trying some really patriarchal tactics of like, go in, scare everyone, and then that's how you're gonna find success. Like, be heavy-handed, make a bunch of changes, target people. He very loudly believed exactly the opposite of everything I stood for.
Right.
Up until his arrival, I had had this opportunity to build a department with my own leadership. One of many, many philosophies that I have is like, do no harm. I think like we all had a really toxic boss or a toxic leader. And if I can have a staff that finds success and also isn't harmed in the process, then I've won. And so I've like done all of this work. I've made this sort of beautiful team. And then this new energy walks through the door. At first, I didn't know how to handle it. And I wanted to try to tackle it, and I wanted to protect the team, and I wanted to protect the legacy and the integrity of all of the work that everyone had put in. And then one day that person said to me, "You know, I'm not used to working with women, and I have to remind myself that y'all are professionals and not just women." And the y'all he's talking about was his entire leadership team. So everyone that reported to him was a woman, and he was essentially telling me that like he doesn't know how to deal with us because normally women aren't professionals in his eyes? Yikes. Yeah. So, yeah, that was like a real pivotal moment in learning, in defining leadership, and also in letting go. In knowing that like, okay, I've built something and I've put my whole heart into it, and not everything is permanent. And I as much as it hurt to like leave that team and leave that organization that I really, really loved, I also sort of had to face the fact that, like, our jobs are not our identity, and we are not a family, and I have to know that the team that I was working with was gonna be okay, and they were gonna find their own paths, and that department, that organization, it was all gonna be okay, it just wasn't always going to be under my leadership, and that's, like, it was kinda humbling. I think I might have had a lot more hubris than I realized at the time.
So, in this moment where you have to make this choice to leave a toxic situation, how did you navigate potential feelings of this being a personal failure on your part?
Yeah, I think that's hard because what I would say right now has so much distance, right? So I've processed so much, and I think I'm a different person than I was 4 years ago, as I hope we all are. But in that moment, I definitely did feel like a failure, and I definitely did feel like, how could I not have figured out how to either suck it up and deal with it and, like, block the team from all of that negativity, or how did I not figure out how to fix it? Or frankly, how did I not charm my way out of this, or like negotiate my way out of this, or like lead my way out of this? I couldn't do any of that. One of the reasons that this team mattered to me so much, it's not only because I built it, I hired all of them, I trained all of them. They were young. I was younger, they were younger than me. So ultimately, I decided if there was like one lesson that maybe I could teach them on my way out, was that you matter the most. Like your experience, your health, staying true to your values, that matters. And it sucks that I had to leave them. And of course, that also matters. They matter. Their experience matters. But it was better for them to see me take a stand and walk away. Or at least that's what I tell myself.
No, I think that was a real lead by example moment. You were showing them that the organization is not more important than you are or they are.
Yeah.
And that's a valuable life lesson that they got to see play out before their very eyes in their 20s.
I do hope that at the very least they are all advocating for themselves right now in whatever position they're in.
So let's talk a little bit about your intersectional identities and how being a queer woman has shaped the way you navigate these spaces both professionally and personally, and how that generally informs your leadership strategy.
I think I can speak to how it informs who I am first, and I think every day I'm still figuring out how it informs my leadership, but who I am and how it informs me. I take the word queer with a very serious definition. It doesn't just mean that I'm part of the LGBT community. It means that I'm part of a community that has broken down those walls. I want to be part of a community that is completely wrapping its arms around itself and not saying, okay, well, trans people over here and bisexuals over here and lesbians over here. I want to approach life in a completely open, community centric way. And that does come back into play when I think about my leadership style. I think some other intersecting identities are like, I'm a cis woman. I have complex PTSD. I live in this 2025 hellscape. And I'm really, really working to hold all of those identities and all of those things that have happened to me holistically and learn how to be soft. And so, how do I kind of consistently integrate all of those pieces of myself together? And then I think there is where we start to talk about how that shows up as a leader. So, if I can be kind and soft to myself, even though I want to just like fucking get it done, how can I have that same softness with my team and with the people that I work with? I want to be someone that is an open door and a safe space and also can be trusted to be really strategic and like get some shit done.
There's an interesting thing to focus on there, which is it's kind of related to the saying, you can't love somebody until you love yourself. You can't lead somebody until you lead yourself. You can't be gentle with somebody until you learn how to be gentle with yourself.
I've truly never thought of it that way. That's so beautiful. As you say that, it makes me like have little visions in my head, like popping in and out of some of the more toxic bosses I've ever had, and how like really that is kind of what they needed probably was
Mhm.
a big hug and some self-love.
Yes. The you don't even realize the ways in which a person can respond from a place of self-loathing and the ways in which those might manifest themselves and be insidious. But I think leadership is a really bright spotlight that gets shined on you and how you relate to yourself. And if your house is not in order, if your
Yeah.
side of the street is not clean, then that's just going to pollute
You're
everyone else.
You're just so fucking right, and I really hadn't thought about it that way. I just don't know that anyone is ready for all the ways in which all your flaws are gonna be on display when you're a leader. Because in a lot of times as a leader, there really isn't a right answer or an easy answer, and sometimes you're making really hard decisions. Your insecurities are gonna show, your biases are gonna show, your exhaustion's gonna show. Like, you are going to be on full display, and a lot of people who myself included, who are, like, used to working hard and used to being in charge and, like, wanna be in control of everything, like, I also wanted to be in close control of my image and how people perceived me, and when you are in a certain level of leadership, you actually can't. People will see your weaknesses, and your weaknesses then have to become your strengths.
This feels like a good time to talk about your astrological placements and how you think those show up in your work life. So first, let's
Yeah.
please introduce us to your chart, your top three.
I am a Capricorn sun, a Capricorn rising, and a Sagittarius moon.
Wow,
I know.
that's quite a dichotomy you have there.
I'm I'm complicated, but also I'm not because I also have like 4 other planets in the sign of Capricorn.
Amazing.
A boss bitch out the womb.
You were just born for this,
Yeah.
to quote Channing Nicholas.
Yes. I was born for this. I was born this way. To quote Lady
To quote
Gaga.
Lady Gaga, queer icons abound. How do you see this podcast as part of your larger life's work?
all of this all this time that I've spent pontificating the paths and the flaws and all of this work I've done on myself to overcome perfectionism, blah blah blah. Like these are things that I think that all of us go through. I think that we're all sort of in our own head telling ourselves stories about our work, our careers, our life, our meaning, our purpose. I just want to build a community through storytelling that allows people to just show up with their whole path and their whole self. Like sometimes we fucked up and the path didn't work out, or sometimes the path just didn't work out because other people fucked up or are monsters. And that's okay too. The path is not linear, even in moments like where I am now, where I think like I've done so much and I kind of did it. Like I found myself at the table that I wanted to be at. And at the end of the day, I still have so much more passion to give. And here's a passion project that speaks to all of my special interests and all of my inner thoughts and dreams and desires. And I know that other people have those same stories and those same thoughts and dreams and desires. And I want to share those stories.
Okay, since this is a very special episode where we're interviewing the host, we're going to have a lightning round before the lightning round. The
The, sh-
shirt before the
the
shirt.
shirt before the shirt.
So, lightning round. Don't overthink it.
Oh, God.
Capricorn stellium means you.
Love order and love to be in charge.
Favorite work ritual?
I am an inbox zero girly, and it is a little controversial, but like I do have a ritual at the end or beginning of every day where I go through all my emails, action on them, file them away, and never look at them again.
What song sums up your career so far?
Oh my God.
You wrote these.
I wrote these questions, but I didn't study. I'm gonna say my favorite 90s jam. This is How We Do It by Montel Jordan. And I don't know, it feels like it sums up a nice, this is how we do it. And no matter what we're doing it.
Who would be a dream guest for Everything Counts?
Okay, I have thought about this one and I have a lot of different answers and a lot of different directions I could take. And one of them was I was thinking about Channing Nicholas, one of my favorite astrologers and podcasters. She inspires me in so many ways. But then it's her wife that comes to mind, actually. Her wife's name is Sonia. I believe that she's the business behind the business, right? She's not the face, but she's like helping to co-run this whole incredible business that they've built together. And she also has like a nonprofit for domestic abuse survivors. She's interesting. I would love to interview someone like her who's probably been through many paths, been through many things, seen and done a lot, but isn't always the face and isn't always the story that's being told.
What does Everything Counts mean to you?
Everything counts means that no effort is wasted. If you spent a year doing service or for a while thought you wanted to be a sonic manager, that still counted towards whatever path you're on. Like whatever it is you're doing right this second, even if you feel off track, it's part of your path and it counts.
Okay, so now let's get into the regular lightning round. These are the same questions that get asked to all of the guests. Do not overthink them. What was the very first job you ever had, and what did it teach you about work?
The very first job that I had was at a bookstore. And it just kind of taught me about work. I really, I didn't know. And so I remember doing all sorts of things like counting out the registers at night, vacuuming the floors. I remember like with whoever was like working with me, we would have to divvy up the closing, right? Like you go vacuum and I'll count out and whatever. And so there was a lot of like learning to work with other people and then a lot of patience because it was a bookstore in the early 2000s. And let me tell you, there's a lot of check writing. People wrote checks for things and whew, you'd like ring them up, and the second they would whip out their checkbook, I'd be like, "Oh my god." And then I would see the line and I would start to panic, but I learned patience, like be sweet and kind through this moment with this person who's using a check. So maybe we'll go with patience.
What's one thing you believed about careers when you were younger that you definitely don't believe now?
I really did believe you could like find a company that you love and believe in and you could just work your way up. Not to say that that doesn't happen, but it's less of a reality in today's world. And not only is it less of a reality just structurally, but it's not necessarily the fulfilling path for everyone. I think I thought like I'll just climb and I'll make it to the top and when I'm at the top, I'll be fulfilled. And that is not how it works.
Best or worst piece of advice you've ever gotten?
I actually think about grad school. This really groundbreaking piece of advice where a professor told us it didn't have to be perfect, it just had to be done. And it was helpful. Like I was like young and I was a perfectionist and I was learning and
For a Capricorn stellium, that's like the
right.
most valuable information anyone could have given.
I was like, can you go ahead and like stitch that on a pillow for me, please? Because I need to remember this all the time. That at the end of the day, you're gonna find flaws in your work, but it also just has to get out there. We have to get our work done. We have to get our voices out there and we have to let go of perfectionism.
What's your career armor? That little thing you reach for when you need comfort at work.
Iced Americanos and black fingernail polish. Not that I'm painting my nails during work. The black fingernail polish is part of my armor, and the iced Americano is part of my blood at this point.
Most embarrassing work story.
When early in my fundraising career, I was brand new. Not only was I a brand new fundraiser, but I was brand new at the organization and they were throwing like a luncheon fundraiser. And and I was like sat at a random table. It was truly one of the most crowded table settings I've ever been at. Like I've been at lots of proper dinners with lots of crowded settings, but this was the most crowded setting I've ever experienced with like 6 glasses per person. Anyway, all I wanted was to reach across the table and get a glass of water, and I knocked a glass of wine onto the woman next to me, covered her in her own glass of wine, and apologized profusely, but she was not happy. And I think about it all the time.
Fixing typos in casual communication, yes or nah?
Usually not. Like, usually I don't do it. I do it more these days because I've found that my friends and family are big fixers of typos. But I used to argue that it was a power move to not fix them because people can tell what I'm saying. As long as I think the message got through, like it's fine. Let's just keep going. I'm in a hurry. Let's keep going. So the short answer is no. The longer answer is I do sometimes fix my typos now.
And last question, what would your advice be to someone who feels off track right now?
Everything counts. My advice truly is whatever it is you're doing right now is teaching you something and you're going to carry it with you to the next thing. And also that all work matters. Like whatever work you're doing that like you think is off track or wrong or like better or worse than what you wish you were doing, it all matters and it's all important and it does all count. I want to reflect on the words nothing is real because I'm a little subconscious of how many times I've made reference to this and I've said nothing is real, everything's fake. And I'm worried that that comes across as I don't take work seriously, I don't take my job seriously. And I do. I've also made reference I think to like once you get to the table, you're surprised at the table, which is true. So it's a little bit of both. I just want to make sure that I'm really clear that being a leader is very real, has very real implications, often very far reaching implications. I take my work seriously. I think that being someone's boss is to be taken very seriously. It's a huge responsibility. I think the impact that you have as a boss on someone's life is so real. I mean, think about the bosses that have impacted us and how we felt at the end of every day with each boss that we've had. I really, 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 really take that seriously. I have often find myself having to pause to remember that even though this is real and serious, it's a little made up. We are working on the fly. The decisions we make, there are best practices in every industry, but we make it up as we go. And we are all just humans sitting at a table making decisions. And sometimes they're the right decisions. And sometimes maybe they're a little flawed because of our humanity that's infused inside of them. And so I just, as a leader, constantly want to make sure that I'm not taking myself too seriously. I am just a human and I want you to see me as a human. And anyway, it's all of the things are wrapped up inside of it. So nothing is real. Truly, everything is made up. And also, everything counts and everything's important. And that is the tension that I'm constantly holding inside. And that is what you'll see reflected in a lot of these conversations. And I want to make sure that I'm so clear that work is allowed to be taken seriously and we're allowed to step back and remember that it's not always real. We are making it up as we go. Thanks for listening to Everything Counts, but Nothing is Real. Remember, even when nothing feels real, everything you do counts. Capitalism may be absurd, but so are we. And on that note, well, it's been real. Don't forget to subscribe. I'm Kristin. See you next time.